responsibly they can scale AI. For India, this momentum carries both opportunity and responsibility. With its digital public infrastructure, scale of talent, entrepreneurial depth, and growing global influence, India is uniquely positioned to help shape how AI is built, governed, and deployed worldwide. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Global AI Lens presented by CNBC-TV18. I'm your host for the evening, Swati Shahi. Now, the global tech industry has its eye on India as we host the India AI Impact Summit 2026. And it is a privilege for me to host the Global Lens Dialogue on its sidelines as we examine India's AI journey not only as a domestic transformation, but as a global leadership story anchored in trust, partnerships, and execution. The evening soiree will bring together policymakers, global leaders, thought leaders, industry pioneers, and institutions at a defining moment in technological history when India is firmly establishing itself as a global AI powerhouse. And well, to set the context with this Global Lens Dialogue and talk about India's growing role in shaping global AI policy, the innovation ecosystems, I would now like to request Mr. C. Vijay Kumar, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, HCLTECH, to please deliver a welcome address. A huge round of applause for him, please.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'll just use my phone. Distinguished guests, policymakers, my dear colleagues, friends, it's really a pleasure to talk to all of you this evening. Right? There is a lot of excitement in Delhi. There's a lot of chaos as well. Right? I'm sure for those of us who lived in India for many, many years, we live in chaos and we still get things done. Right? We're only hoping AI will really make us do things without the chaos. But it's the defining challenge of the century, right? It's my privilege to be here at this defining moment, not just for India, but for the global AI, the technological advancements, right? It's really, truly a defining moment. Today, India is playing a very pivotal role in shaping the AI outcomes, right? We are just not, we may not be in the frontier models and cutting edge technology solutions, but it's here. It's in India where rubber hits the road with respect to deploying AI, right? And today the challenge is the frontier models are expanding at a rapid speed, but their ability to be deployed in real life situations at scale, at enterprise level, at big governments, all of that is just subscale, right? The biggest challenge is deploying AI at scale is really the biggest challenge. Now, in India, the challenges are many, but the way the industry is stepping up, the policies of the government is shaping up, the enthusiasm and the encouragement that the government is providing to really enable this, and most importantly, the talent in India is really in the forefront of shaping how AI can be deployed to really change the world in terms of advancements in research and development, medical breakthroughs, and many different areas. We are really doing our very best to deploy these solutions. At HCL Technologies, while we are a very large services company, I have the privilege of running this company for over a decade, while I've been in the company for more than 3 decades. This industry has pivoted, the tech services industry has pivoted across multiple technological cycles, whether it is internet, cloud, digitization, all of that created significant challenges for the industry, mostly to scale the technological capabilities to kind of derive benefits from these technologies. But AI is very different. It is really commoditizing, it's democratizing knowledge. So in this scenario, our business models will need to change significantly. While we continue to sustain the services business model, it's imperative to really move from an IT services kind of a model to a non-linear IP-led model. And that is one big focus area for us. We're also the largest software company that's headquartered out of India. So we are not only advancing the industry shift from being pure services, tech services player, but really evolving to become a product company, right? Now, our ambition is to become the best AI solution provider. So it's not just services, we have software products, we are building AI platforms which help the large language models and reasoning models that are advancing at a rapid pace. The biggest challenge is in the first mile and the last mile, right? And the first mile is when governments, enterprises want to adapt. It's about security, it's compliance, it's privacy, the trust, right? These are the very, very big factors which really impede the initial use of AI in big institutions and in enterprises. And the last mile, right? You can get through the first mile, get all the models deployed, get some use cases, and you can see some pilots. Now to scale them, there is a huge organizational change management, right? And how do you really capture the productivity? There are a lot of fractional productivities that you get across, but can it really deliver a bottom line impact, right? So we are building products which bridge the front line, the first line and the last mile of this problem, right? And we have built platforms like AI Force, Talent Navigator, Vision X, multiple solutions for multiple industries to solve this problem. And there are many other firms in our industry who are continuing to evolve, not just the services, but also building more solutions. However, the AI opportunity is much bigger than just creating some IP solutions. The opportunity is also about physical AI. In the physical world, how can we use robotics and AI to solve some difficult challenges? Like in industries, can we use robotics to look at some dangerous spots like oil spills and things like that, which are generally difficult for people to be part of that? You could use robotic solutions. And we are building a lot of solutions in physical AI, right? And the second thing is the whole AI data center infrastructure, right? India has an enormous capacity and a lot of unique differentiation that India brings in building large data center capacity, right? It's about, because at least 25% of the AI usage will eventually be coming out of India, because the largest pool of software engineers and the population scale requirements that are there will be a very, very significant consumer of AI. So it is important for us in India to build large-scale data centers. The power capacity situation is much better in India than any other parts of the world. The renewable energy ratio is also very high, right? So all of this is going to really help create completely new opportunities and businesses that India did not have. And just yesterday, the Honorable Minister for Electronics and IT, Shri Ashwini Vaishnavji, announced the capacity expansion from 38,000 to adding another 20,000 more GPUs in the coming weeks, right? So the momentum is all result of a rare convergence, which is the strong policy actions from the government, digital public infrastructure at population scale, a deep and a diverse talent pool, and an unwavering focus on applied intelligence. So for the first time, AI leadership is no longer defined solely by who builds the largest models. It is defined by who can deploy AI in a responsible, affordable, and a democratic way and at scale. And that's India advantage. Thank you, everyone, and I wish you a good session in the rest of the evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that insightful address, sir. Well, moving on, ladies and gentlemen, as AI reshapes global economic and technological alliances, collaborations between democracies become central to building trusted and inclusive systems. India and Sweden share complementary strengths across sustainability, industrial innovation, and advanced digital ecosystems. Our upcoming conversation will explore how bilateral cooperation can shape scalable and responsible AI aligned with global development goals. And to take this conversation forward, I'd like to invite Parikshit Luthra, Chief of Bureau, CNBC-TV18. A huge round of applause for him, please. And also, please welcome Her Excellency, Ms. Ebba Busch, Deputy Prime Minister of Sweden. Over to you, Parikshit.
We need a mic for her? She's got it. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us this evening. We've been battling the rain, and we hope to make the best possible arrangements for you. But thank you very much for joining us, Ms. Busch, because we've been seeing how it's been chaotic. There's a lot of traffic, and Delhi's trying to do its best with the AI Summit, and hundreds of delegates from across the world who are here. But I'd like to thank you, Minister Thiagarajan, for joining us, taking out time on a very busy day, and all our leading CEOs from India and Sweden who've joined us today. Let me kick this conversation off by asking you about your experience in India over the last few hours. What gives you most amount of confidence about the India-Sweden partnership on artificial intelligence?
Okay, so first off, thank you so much for a warm welcome to India. And to me, this is not chaotic. This is a proof that everyone's eyes is now on India for a reason. Because India is, number one, the fastest growing AI market. But also, I think because of Prime Minister Modi's leadership in these issues, it's not a coincidence that we're seeing that this is the first AI summit being led from the Global South, is now in New Delhi, is in India. But I also think that Sweden and India, in many ways, were a great match. We're a small country, but we're a smart country. And it's not that often you hear a Swede brag, but I will do that because it's facts today. And an American taught me that. It's not bragging if it's facts. We're actually ranked number 1, 2, or 3 in all of the global innovation indexes around the world. And I think this is a lot due to, we've instilled in our whole population that the combination of hard work and curiosity can truly make a country overcome really difficult problems. And what we're seeing now in India with the leadership you're taking on in AI issues is not only a fast-growing market, but it is also cutting-edge talent. And the determination to get it done right, and get it done in an inclusive way that makes sure that AI, although it might seem technical and hard to maybe sometimes understand, it is made by man, and AI should serve in the purpose of providing good to humanity. That is its purpose.
Right. So I'd like to take off from where Mr. Vijay Kumar left a short while back. He said that the winner in future, 10 years from now, will not be a company or a person who builds frontier models, but one who is able to democratize them and deploy them at scale. Give us a sense of how Sweden has been successful in doing that, deploying AI for social good, for leaving no one behind, and how can we marry the strengths of India and Sweden together?
Okay, so I'll start off by saying this. I've gotten used to, when it comes to AI issues, to know that I'm probably the one in the room that knows the least about these issues. And it says something that we have one of the largest international delegations for this AI summit is in this room today. That also says something about the commitment from the private sector of Sweden, ready to do business here in India, but also ready to welcome more business in Sweden, of course. But if you go back to the 90s, what happened in Sweden? Well, in many ways, we democratized the way we digitalized our society or enabled it to more. Almost every kid in Sweden born in the 80s had access to a home computer, to a PC. We made it tax deductible to buy your own computer in your home, tax deductible to buy a printer at home. That has shaped the generation that is now in power, that it has now become entrepreneurs. And I think the same sense of making the next technology accessible, affordable for all is where we can learn a lot and work together between India and Sweden, because a high degree of digital maturity and very fertile soil for that makes it possible for the young generation, for the kids my age, not my age, but the age of my children, to take their ideas and turn them into reality through AI. But then it has to be accessible for all.
Right. Now, Sweden has managed its energy transition well. Now, when we speak about artificial intelligence and the large models that will have to be deployed, they'll have to be powered with lots of energy. Data centers will require lots and lots of energy. How do we make sure we do it in a sustainable fashion? How is Sweden making that change?
Well, I'll continue with some facts then. We have an almost 100% fossil-free electricity production in Sweden. Only 0.6% of our electricity is produced from fossil sources. The rest is either hydro or nuclear power, or it is renewables, predominantly wind power. But we've set now out on a journey to almost meet a doubling of demand in electricity. So although we have one of the best situations in all of Europe, a massive surplus of electricity production, it has to be there where and when it is needed. And here I'd like to, really ask the private sector to ask your policymakers to take politics and ideology out of energy policy and put physics back in. Because there has been too much a discussion on the battle of the power sources. Should it be gas? Should it be oil? Should it be nuclear power? Should it be wind power? For Sweden, it has to be fossil-free because we think of our environment, our climate, and we have shown leadership in combining economic growth with cutting emissions. But for the next transition we're seeing, the next industrialization with AI at the forefront, we're going to need power 24/7, 365 days a year. And that brings me to my end conclusion. Ask your policymakers for baseload, not just massive production of electricity, because that will get you nowhere. The AI transition we're seeing now will need electricity every given second. Make sure that it's driven not by ideology, but by physics, basic laws of physics, and that it is there whenever you need it, or else you lose in competitiveness.
Right. Now, when it comes to the private sector cooperation, what are certain mission points that you come to India with? If you're seeking closer collaboration between businesses, either in terms of investments, either in terms of alignment in rules and regulations, what would be your recommendations, top recommendations?
Okay, so let's see if I get your question right. So first of all, I would say that what Sweden is looking for is partnership in the industry sector. It is for our public sector and our public services specifically, and it is in healthcare. For many, I think artificial intelligence is still a lot like, seeing fire for the first time. You're fascinated, you don't fully grasp it. Is it a natural force? Is it provided by the gods? Is it man-made? Where does this fire come from? And it either has the potential to completely destroy a complete village, or you find a way to tame the fire and make use of it for good of humanity. And this is the reason why I sometimes say I'm used to knowing that I know the least about AI, but I think I know quite a bit about about people and about public legitimacy. And that's the last point I want to push, apart from these sectors where we're looking for partners, and it's related to healthcare. People need to understand what difference artificial intelligence can make, or else they'll keep on being scared. We're always scared of the things we don't fully understand. And I think, at least in Sweden, the way to the common Swede's heart is through healthcare, solving some of our difficult problems there. Then it becomes tangible. Then it goes from being an anonymous data center to making use and difference for people. And that from there, I think public legitimacy will grow.
Right. It's very important to have trusted infrastructure and safety. So what is Sweden's approach? European Union has come out with an AI Act. At the level of the Swedish government, how are you approaching trust-based infrastructure and making sure the AI we use is safe for women, children, and for the society?
Yeah. So first of all, my warm greetings from my Prime Minister, Ulf Kristersson. And he has been very clear that we will not over-implement the AI Act. We will rather under-implement it. We will do just enough. And the reason for this is basically because we're seeing the massive change in artificial intelligence moving so rapidly. We know that if you try to get too much detail-oriented in the policymaking and regulatory frameworks now, we'll suffocate it. AI will never be as bad as the version that we're seeing today. It will be so much better only in 3 months' time. So what I'm challenging my fellow European leaders is there a way for us for the years to come, and I'd like to see Sweden to lead the way in this, to rather regulate the overarching goal. I don't have all of the answers for this yet, but I have the direction I want to walk in. Let's find a way not to micromanage this technical development, but rather say we need to reinvent the way we do laws and regulatory framework. We need to regulate the overarching goal, not micromanage every step of it.
My final question to you, and something that our audience would want to know as well. India and EU have agreed upon an FTA, which is possibly going to be signed and ratified by early next year. How is this going to open up opportunities for businesses in Sweden and India?
I think it's worth a round of applause for the free trade agreement. Finally, moving across the finish line, This is really, it was a day of celebration when we finally got the final signing of this. There are still a few steps in this. It says something when you bring together the forces of the fourth largest economy and the second largest market that the European Union is. But I'd like to leave you off with this. For me, the free trade agreement is much more than just a trade agreement. It is also an investment for generations to come. And I mentioned my children earlier. I talk a lot to my 11-year-old boy who asks me sometimes, you know, why have they elected this political leader? He seems to not be playing according to the rules. I'm not going to tell you who we were talking about. You can guess. It makes for good challenges for mommy to try and explain these issues. But I mean,
that's the toughest audience.
Yeah, definitely. But my point is, the next generation are looking at us now to see how we navigate these turbulent times. Is there a reason for realistic hope? And my answer is yes. But we need to choose our partners carefully and strategically. The European Union has chosen India. Sweden is choosing India, and that is for a reason. Let's build strong partnerships that last for generations and give realistic hope that holds. And we look forward to celebrating you in 2047 and see how far along you've gone in the leadership together with good allies and partners.
Deputy Prime Minister, thank you so much for joining us here on Global AI Lens, helping us kick off this mega event and leaving us with lots and lots to think about.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Parikshit. Thank you, Your Excellency. Your insights truly reflect the future of bilateral relations. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, as we all know, India's AI journey will be shaped not only by national vision, but by states translating strategy into real-world execution. Across the country, state governments are building digital infrastructure, fostering innovation, ecosystems, and embedding AI into governance and industry frameworks. Tamil Nadu has emerged as a significant player in this transformation, aligning policy ambition with industrial depth and digital capability. To discuss this and more, and also that how India's AI priorities are being implemented at the state level, it is my distinct honor to welcome Shri P. Tyagarajan, Honorable Minister for Information Technology and Digital Services, Government of Tamil Nadu. Please welcome him with a huge round of applause. And I also invite Parikshit Luthra, Chief of Bureau, CNBC-TV18, to take this conversation forward.
Please, sir. I'll get you a mic. A mic for sir. Yeah, thank you. Please, sir. Thank you so much, Mr. Tyagarajan, for being gracious with your time and supporting us in this endeavor. It's important to have these conversations on artificial intelligence. But really, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to the India story on AI, it will have to be led by states. The center can play an enabling role, but at the day, it is states like Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Maharashtra, they will all compete, and hopefully the best will win, and companies across the world will get the best deal. Mr. Tyagarajan, give us a sense of how your government has been supporting companies in leveraging AI, making AI models. We were speaking to investors yesterday at the India AI Impact Summit, and they were saying India has now truly entered the model race. Where do we go from here? And if 1 year down the line, if we had to say that this summit was successful, what would be the benchmark?
Well, first, thank you for inviting me. I would say the role of the state is always to be an enabler. Innovation, true innovation, usually comes from outside. I'm happy that people like my fellow Tamilian CVK lead companies, or Perplexity, or many of the AI companies are led by people who were born and educated in Tamil Nadu and go on to innovate. But the state's job, I think, is to set some guidelines, to provide some incentives, and to try and keep up with the latest kind of developments, because as the Deputy Prime Minister said, it's very hard for us to regulate ahead of innovation. Innovation will always beat regulation. I came from the public markets. And so the job of the government, I think, on the one hand is to be an enabler. On the other hand is to continuously check what is going right and what is going wrong. And in particular, I would say in India, both in terms of what has already been mentioned in terms of the GPUs and the government of India providing the compute power, governments are the biggest source of data inherently, whether that's digitalized, whether it's tokenized, whether it's usable, whether it's in local language. These are all things we need to expand. But at a profound level, governments are the biggest source of data. So one of the things we do in Tamil Nadu is first we try to improve our own databases, integrate them, use them to run the government more efficiently, to improve the citizen connect with the government, and to bring apps based on limited ambition, that is, with the purity of data, limited ambition in things like retinal health, oral health, in crop management, in wildlife conflict resolution, or predictive modeling, in these areas where we think that we can actually deploy this today for every citizen to use. But at the heart of it, I think the two principles for me will be that it has to be local language. We can't rely on English models. And so we have some efforts underway I can talk about in detail. And more important, that it should be voice-based, because we are still a country where not everybody has access to a text device or everybody's literate enough. In states like Tamil Nadu, we have great luxury because of a legacy of universal education stretching 100 years. So our access levels are very high. And yet we should do more for true social equity and inclusion.
Right. Now, you've spoken about multilingualism. And that's, of course, very important, because when it comes to artificial intelligence, you need to get the dialect right. You need to get the context absolutely right when you're giving a solution. So how are you linking incentives and the kind of support that you give to companies in the AI space? Is it going to be linked to how they could relate or solve problems in the local language?
Yeah, so far our policies, we were probably the earliest state to put in a fair use policy going back 6 years and an updated incentive policy 2 years ago. So far our policies are not language dependent. Our efforts inside the government are very much focused on Tamil computing. We have a special division for both Tamil computing, language models in Tamil, as well as we partner with people like Bhashini across the country, who are doing local language and translation, as well as with Sarvam, where we make sure that Tamil data sets, Tamil models are an integral part of the system. But that's mostly in the government. At a private enterprise level, we just want them to innovate whichever way they can. And later, if we have to, we'll figure out how to prioritize Tamil. But the state, which is not looking for a profit motive, is the place where we focus on the language the most.
Right. We were speaking to you earlier the last couple of weeks, and you did tell us that you know so many of the Swedish CEOs. You worked with them in the past in some capacity or the other. How do you think we can leverage this relationship? The India-Sweden partnership, there are 600 Swedish companies in India. Which are some of the points of strength we should use?
Well, as the Deputy Prime Minister said, it is one of the smartest countries. It is one of the countries that has innovated the most in the era of the internet and now in the era of AI. And I think what we have is a market and a test bed that is not in the same league, right? And it's 8-10 million people in Sweden, and let's say a middle class of 400 million people or something in India, and a total population, if it's truly democratized, of 1.5 billion. So what we bring, I think, are very complementary strengths. Sweden has been and always will be a relatively economically strong kind of country and an innovator because of, again, I would say the commonality with Tamil Nadu is this focus on inclusion, social justice, equitable access, which we're doing, just as an aside, where we're ensuring now fiber optic to the home in every village so that we can get 100 Mbps speed for people to have video learning access and make it more equitable. And we have just started a AI-enabled laptop scheme, so every college student has with Perplexity and Copilot installed, so that our young people are basically in the right part of the game. But this inclusion and equitable access, I think, is common to us, but the scales are just completely different, right? Like, we have the possibility of testing in health, let's say. Our databases are so large that what you can extract from our health databases, you can't get anywhere else. And, in so many ways, the innovation and economic capital of Sweden, the scale and usability and last mile delivery that my friend CVK was talking about, and execution, I think, will be a good fit.
Right. Now, I would like to ask you, if GST was the big reform that happened in India last year, we reduced it to 2 rates and had 1 sin rate. What would be the big reform that India can bring for artificial intelligence?
Well, as you know, I was a member of the GST Council and a frequent critic of the system. So I would not like to use this reform as the benchmark for anything. This reform, in my mind, is still too little, too late. There's a lot more reform that needs to happen. We have just published a report in Chennai this morning in the Assembly, tabled it in the Assembly, where one chapter of which I had some input talks about at least 10 more structural reforms that will improve GST. So I won't set the bar based on GST reform. I would say that the government of India, the first thing they can do better is to work more closely with the states. We have seen politics too often divide, and winning elections cannot be the end goal. We win elections so we can implement better policy, so we can get better outcomes for the people. That seems to be lost. So to me, the government of India, if it worked more closely in every aspect, but particularly in game-changing points like AI, if it worked more closely with the states, then I think we would get much better outcomes rather than they do what they do and then we try to figure out how we fit into what they do.
Right. a question about how we regulate data. I think this is going to be a very important conversation for all companies looking to invest. We've signed a deal with the European Union. We've agreed on a deal, interim deal, with the United States as well. And digital trade, digital rules will be a part of the negotiations now. How do you think we should regulate our data in a manner that helps innovation but protects our citizens as well?
That's a very fine trade-off, but again, such regulations, as strong a federalist as I am, such regulations cannot be state by state. They have to come from the government of India, and so I defer to them. And both Mr. Vaishnav, who's a friend of mine, the secretary, Mr. Krishnan, who used to be my finance secretary when I was finance minister, I have faith that they will evolve the right kind of blend of, on the one hand, sovereignty and protection of citizens' rights, on the other hand, enough access so that innovators and thinkers of new ideas. Like, one of the things I really like about Tamil Nadu, when I see these young people startups, they are not trying to be the next $1 billion or whatever world conquering engine. They use AI, or they use advanced kind of techniques, automation, prediction, generation, in solving local problems in their neighborhood, about urban quality of life, about kind of water management, about waste management.
Right.
So I think there will be a trade-off, but at least at this point, to be honest, our data is like way backwards. We don't have enough data, we don't have it in the right format, and we are not in the scale. If you look at the English language models, they're processing a few trillion tokens. Best language we have, we're processing probably 100 billion, right? So we have to actually improve our data transformation and integration first, of course with privacy, but I think we're a long way off from that frontier of efficient utilization to safety. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Tyagarajan, for joining us here at our Global AI Lens event, giving us a perspective of what the success in the India-Sweden partnership could look like, and also the success for India in AI should be like as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing the state's vision. And thank you, Parikshit. That was truly insightful. Well, ladies and gentlemen, moving on, as India accelerates its AI ambition, readiness becomes the defining question. Readiness of talent, infrastructure, policy, and institutional capability and capacity. Building AI capability is not only about technology, but about enabling transformation across sectors and governance systems. This conversation will focus on what it truly takes to prepare India for sustained AI leadership in a competitive global landscape. And to steer this conversation ahead, I would like to invite back Parikshit, and also please join me in welcoming Debjani Ghosh, Distinguished Fellow and Chief Architect, HCLTECH, Niti Aayog. A huge round of applause for both of them, please.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Debjani Ghosh, for being with us. Ms. Ghosh, of course, has headed India's IT industry body, NASSCOM. She's the head of Frontier Technologies at Niti Aayog, which is the Indian government's leading think tank. Let me begin with the work that you have done. Some of it has been showcased at the Bharat Mandapam as well. Work in terms of how AI can power India's economic growth. Give us a sense of what's your blueprint on that front.
Wow. Okay, that's a loaded question to start with. So, if you break down the levers of AI, right? There are broadly 3 levers that will decide what happens when you use it. The first lever is re-engineering every single workflow that exists. And a workflow is not just manufacturing or agriculture, it's education, it's how we learn, it's how governments govern. But every single workflow, if we can re-engineer for higher productivity, higher efficiency, that's the first lever. The second lever is how do you use AI to significantly accelerate scientific discovery, right? And there's some fantastic work that's happening around that space, from finding cancer cure to renewable energies to new material development, etc., etc. And the third lever is a lever that you have to manage. These are two positive levers. The third lever is, with technology evolution, your risk surface continues to expand, right? So how do you navigate that? So I think for any country, any government that is thinking of using technologies like AI for accelerated growth, it's really about how do you play with these three levers. How much of productivity boost do you go in for? Which are the sectors that you will go in and re-engineer the processes? How much of, where do you want to bet with respect to accelerated scientific discovery? How do you manage risks? So it's going to be a combination of these three.
You know, over the last few weeks, we've been seeing how IT stocks all over the world have been affected because of changes happening due to AI, Anthropic launching an AI legal tool, and that somehow set off a ripple effect in the IT stocks. How do you think the Indian IT services sector is prepared for that disruption, which will only go stronger in the year 2026?
You know, I've spent so much time in this industry. How many times have we written off this industry?
Mr. CVK was here. He said that he's seen so many disruptions and risks in his
It's
career.
not just a disruption. When cloud happened, we said you're dead. When platformization happened, we said you're dead. When SaaS happened, we said you're dead, right? I think the one thing we underestimate about the industry is it's about people. And people have this ability to reinvent, to adapt, to change. But this time round, I think why the markets have reacted, and I think why people are worried, is we are not dealing with another cyclical disruption. We are dealing with a basic structural change. And this structural change has to do with the core business model of the sector. Yes, AI is disrupting the current business model. The revenue per head model, it's currently absolutely will get disrupted. But there is so much opportunity for this sector to move to an outcome-based revenue model. And I think that's the transition. I definitely am betting on the industry to transition to that.
Yeah. At Niti Aayog, give us a sense of the work, your recommendations in terms of increasing the level of skilling in our population. If you had to map out the skill deficit in the country right now, what would that be and how do we bridge that?
I think the only thing you can skill for is the ability to learn new things. Because you can't skill for something and expect after 5 years of college that thing to be relevant. You just can't. So it's really about building the foundation. It's building I think we need to bring statistics back into education, everything we do, maths, science, statistics. It's about building that problem-solving mindset. It's about building teamwork capabilities. But we have to re-engineer education itself, because people have to know how to unlearn and then quickly learn as new things happen. And I think that's going to be the new skill that everyone will need. That's going to be the life skill that everyone will need.
Are we using enough of AI in government services to gauge how our government schemes are actually performing on the ground? Do you think that there is a case for using AI at scale within the government?
I think Minister would have told you there's some amazing work happening at a state level, right? To understand not just how schemes are performing, but I'm amazed that some of the states are actually building predictive capabilities to say that based on how it has performed, how will they perform in the future? What needs to change? So, the one thing and this is one thing I keep telling all our states and departments, sitting on data is useless. Data has zero value when it's stored, unlike oil. So whoever said data is oil has done more injustice than, harm than good, because you keep storing data thinking it's oil and you have zero value. So you have to utilize that data. You have to turn that data into intelligence, and then you have to act on the intelligence. That's where the value comes. So it's going to be very important for states to realize that they have to unlock their data. And I think some states like Tamil Nadu and a few states have started doing it. You started doing it very well. And when you start unlocking that data, I think you have seen it, you realize it's not just about telling you what has happened in the past. The real power is when it starts telling you what will happen in the future. And I think that's where we will go.
Right. At the government's leading think tank, what is the current thinking in terms of upskilling our students, making sure our IITs, our IIMs, they're prepared for the future? We were speaking to some experts yesterday, and they said that from class 3 onwards, or standard 3 onwards, you should be teaching AI to students. Where do you think we should start?
First of all, I don't know what teaching AI means. You have to do AI. I really do not understand what this concept of teaching AI means. If you're going to have curriculum that's telling you AI is XYZ and this is what it means, trust me, it's useless. Right? They have to code. And coding is great. Even though they say coding jobs will go away, I love coding because it's the biggest problem-solving tool. Right? So coding, we have to think of coding very differently. It builds that questioning mindset. It builds a mindset of solving problems, of developing, of building. And I think that's the mindset we need. So at NITI, in the Frontier Tech Hub especially, when we looked at tech jobs, we came out with a report to see what would be the impact of technology, and I'll get to skills in that context. What is the impact of technology in India? The tech workers in India roughly is around 8 to 9 million. 6 million, around 5 to 6 million is in the tech industry, and the rest are in all other industries from banking to healthcare. And when you start breaking down the impact of AI on tasks, because there is no such thing as AI displacing jobs. AI displaces tasks. So when you start breaking down what does AI do to specific tasks, you realize that the first level it's going to completely make irrelevant is the entry level, the routine jobs, the low-end coders, the data entry operators. Because that's where, even today, with a lower level of AI adoption, we are getting around 30% higher productivity. And we believe in the next 2 years, when adoption goes up, you're going to get around 50% productivity, when it's going to be very difficult to justify headcount, right? So even if we just look at that, that's going to be an impact of around 1.5 million people in the next 3 years, right? Now the question is, where will they go? Are there new jobs getting created? Yes, there are new jobs getting created. But the nature of jobs is very different. The jobs that are going away are jobs that employed millions of people, right? These are the low-end jobs that employs millions at a time. The jobs that are coming in are hyper-specialized jobs that employ at best thousands or 100,000 people. But when you start adding up the jobs that are coming in, and we did that for India over a roadmap of 3 years, we found that while 1.5 million gets displaced, nearly around 4 million new jobs are getting created in the industry, but it requires a completely different skilling mindset. We have to completely re-engineer how we teach. It has to be based on what are the skills that's needed, what are the jobs, and this is where the industry-academia connect becomes absolutely critical. And one of the things that NITI has been asking for is a whole-of-government approach to AI talent building in the country. So,
we've concluded our talks with the European Union, and one of the countries we will be collaborating with very closely is with Sweden. What can we learn from Swedish businesses, the Swedish government, their approach to upskilling, their approach to sustainability in data centers, and also deploying AI at scale and in a democratic fashion?
I don't know if it's what can we learn, but it is how do we ensure that there is continuous learning happening? Because learning is both ways, and there are so many best practices across, and especially when you're talking about Sweden, in terms of the green data centers, what they are doing, the power efficiencies. There's just so much to learn. I think one of the things, and this is what, in the AI summit, we have these different working committees, and I'm chairing the one on economic development and social good. And one of the key things that we decided that has to happen going forward is the intelligence can't exist in silos. We need to create a network for this intelligence to flow across countries. And I think we need collective action right now. So there's a lot to learn from every country that you look at.
Right. And finally, 5 years down the line, if we had to say India is successful with AI, what would be certain benchmarks according to you?
A thriving MSME sector, the backbone of our nation, with productivity up around 10x or more. The informal sector of India, which is 50% of GDP, the construction workers, the caregivers, they see a huge bump in productivity. Every child, every woman, every man is AI fluent, if I may say that, because they know how to use it for whatever they need to use it for, and they know how to be safe in this AI era. But I think for me, it is a fantastic tool of augmentation. In 5 years, we should empower every citizen to use it to augment their lives, but we have to ensure that that process starts from the grassroots and not from the top. So that's why the sectors that usually get left behind, the informal sector, the small and medium businesses, we have to start there.
We have to make sure that they don't suffer. Thank you very much, Ms. Ghosh, for joining us here for a fantastic conversation on how India can lead and play a big role in the AI revolution taking place globally. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your valuable insights, and thank you, Parikshit. Well, moving on to our first panel discussion, ladies and gentlemen. Strategic technology partnerships today extend beyond trade. They encompass governance frameworks, infrastructure collaboration, and long-term innovative alignment. The India-Sweden corridor reflects shared values and complementary capabilities across deep technology, healthcare, defense, and digital transformation. Our upcoming panel will examine how responsible AI can be deployed at scale while strengthening cross-border economic and technological collaboration. To moderate this session, may I please invite Prashant Nair, Executive Editor, CNBC-TV18, and joining him on the panel are Carl Bildt, former Prime Minister and former Foreign Affairs Minister of Sweden. A round of applause for him, please. Hari Gopal Krishnan, Partner EQT, Michael Johnson, President and Chief Executive Officer, Saab, and Dr. Sunita Reddy, Managing Director, Apollo Hospitals.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's a bit of a maddening day for those of us who are to get here. I walked the last 2 kilometers with the traffic, which has, of course, been absolutely crazy with everything which is going on. But I think, talking of traffic and the frenzy around traffic, there's a frenzy around AI as well. And, I guess part of the reason why, I report on financial markets and I look at what's happening on a daily basis. I can tell you, the only thing which has been the focus area has been, which is AI and what industry next it's going to disrupt, etc., etc. Of course, markets try to price things in far ahead of what the actual businesses and the actual disruption happens. But we're not here to talk about markets. We're here to talk about slightly longer term. And as I was coming here, I was walking, I was thinking, you know, when we talk about big tech, we think about China, we think about US. But if there's, I guess, one country which regularly punches above its weight, it's Sweden. If you look at, I mean, something like, you know, innovation per capita, if you can use it, that terminology with, I mean, you know, some great companies out of there and what's happening right now. So it's got a fantastic academic science-led ecosystem. And of course, and I think that's produced a fair bit of innovation and cutting-edge technology from there. So thank you all for joining us. And I hope to have sort of, you know, we hope to learn from all of you over the next 30 odd minutes or so. Mr. Johansson, if I can start with you, sir. You know, I started by saying frenzy, AI mania, or however you want to put it. You know, here in India at least, right? As you can see, I mean, a fair bit of interest around it. Is it the same in Sweden? Is there a bit of, I mean, is the interest levels, are they at the peak level, very, very high?
I'm just getting a temperature check to kick it off.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's AI friendly, and I think we are quick adopters of AI. We may not build sort of the models as much ourselves in terms of developing different models for different type of businesses or applications, but we definitely adopters in a quick way right now. When you talk about AI friendly country,
I meant AI frenzy. I mean, you know, everyone going a little, well, this is here, it's going to disrupt everything. You've heard headlines from some of the tech leaders in the US, right? All kinds of timelines about how no one's, you know, no job's going to be around in 10 years, 20 years, and those kind of things. I mean, can't blame people for being anxious when you hear it from some of the leaders in the industry. So I just wanted to get a sense from you. Is it really, I mean, is that the sense in Sweden as well?
I mean, it might have to do with the fact that Sweden is maybe not the biggest country in the world. We actually lack engineering capability. We lack lots of people doing different tasks for us. So for us in the engineering business, I run a defense company. And of course, we need lots of engineers, but we definitely need lots more efficiency in how we develop things and how we actually implement things. And there we use AI because we can't find all the people we need. So it's definitely friendly from a and not sort of a threat from an industry perspective. I don't see it like that at all.
Fair enough. Mr. Bill, if I can come to you, sir. What's just give us, again, a temperature check first up, and your perspective on country to country, government to government kind of collaboration on what we're seeing with these technologies. I mean, all kinds of things, right? Sovereign AI, and this is all new for everyone.
It's all new for everyone, and it's working forward very, very fast. I mean, if you just chat GPT, what was that, 3 years ago or something like that, not more than that, is the fastest spread of any technology in the history of mankind so far. And we've just seen, I mean, the latest model that's been out in the last, I mean, the latest Claude model, if you look at that, is mind-boggling what it's doing, and if you compare it to what was there only 6 months ago. Where will we be 3, 4, 5 years down the road? We haven't a clue. The only thing we know is that it's going to transform practically everything. We need to be there. Every sort of business has to be on their toes. We have to invest in research and development. We have to invest in an entrepreneurial climate. I think Sweden is doing reasonably well in all of these factors. I mean, we're one of the innovation leaders of Europe. We are one of the leaders in having good capital markets. We have good technical high schools and universities. We have too few people at them. That's the problem. And then we are...
People we can provide.
Yeah, quite. I was going to say that. We are not a gigantic country, if I might disclose that. But we are a very open country to the rest of the world. We know that our success lies both in what we do ourselves, but linking up with the rest of the world. And linking up with India, with the human talent and the size and the scale that is here. That, I think, is of strategic importance for Sweden. And that's why you have an amazingly large Swedish delegation here with the big business. That's fine, I'm all in favor. But I'm more, yeah, I am. But I'm more impressed by the number of startups and small Swedish AI companies that have come to India to listen and to learn and to link, that's the future.
Ma'am, Apollo of Hospitals, of course, has been one of the early adopters of digital technologies. Now there is AI. And when I think about healthcare, it's being basically used in two areas, right? Diagnostics and drug discovery. I mean, just give us a sense of what's the state of play as you see it.
No, I think the most important use currently in today's life is in the predictive healthcare. And it is in the preventive healthcare space, as well as in the curative healthcare space. It's important for us because, as said earlier, data is dark. And for us to be able to take it into a clinical lab setting, we've actually come out with 22 use case protocols where we can look at cardiac risk, where we can triage a patient before they enter emergency, where we're able to connect to 200 connected nursing homes and predict whether they're going to have an event that will need to ICU. So I think it's predictability, it's the ability to drive change much faster, which leads to saving lives. And of course, AI in healthcare is also about doing the difficult tasks, which no one really likes to do. And that differentiates it, so we're able to speed up discharge times and improve bed utilization by 7.4%. So these are important statistics that will leverage the use of intellectual property and democratize AI, because what we do in Chennai, we want to be able to do it in the Tier 2 and the Tier 3. And we're able to do this using AI, taking the clinical protocols to the smaller towns and make healthcare equitable.
As well put, ma'am. Hari, as an investor, right? I mean, you got to watch everything. So are you watching your portfolio for where this AI thing is going to hit for disruption? I mean, we've seen this in the US last 10 days, right? Insurance stocks sold off. Broking, wealth management stocks sold off. Software, of course, started all of it. But it's not just limited to software. It started in software, but if it's going to show up everywhere. So your first thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. So thanks, Prashant. So EQT Partners is one of the top 3 private equity firms in the world. We have $300 billion worth of investments under management. In India, we have north of 15 billion investments. And like Carl said, we believe that AI is going to touch everything. And AI is really core to what we do. EQT actually invested in an internal platform called Motherbrain, which is in 2016. So it's more than 10 years that we've been working on it. And so we were one of the earliest to use AI internally. And this platform actually helps us find assets, find data recognition, patterns within portfolio companies, helps us intervene early. So AI has been very central to what we do. Today, each of our portfolio companies, we are incorporating AI to position them better, and we want each of our companies to be known as AI first. So, we are really optimistic about the long-term impact of AI and how do we integrate that and position our businesses for the future. So that's really the path we are on.
You have a healthcare business in your portfolio as well, right, Hari?
Actually, healthcare is globally for EQT. Healthcare is one of our biggest sectors. Close to 45% of our investments are in healthcare globally. And so AI touches healthcare in different aspects, yeah.
You got a healthcare business sitting next to you. And but just, ma'am, just to sort of come to you, where do you see this going? I mean, in your sector, in healthcare as a business, do you see the speed of, one thing I've heard repeatedly is that the potential of AI is large, but enterprises using it, because enterprises are complex systems and there is legacy software, legacy systems, and you can't just take it, slap it on top and hope to make it work. You've got to, but for healthcare, I guess it's different, right? Especially hospitals. This is patients coming in, wanting scans, diagnostics, etc. So you can sort of apply it much more in a much wider way, you'd say?
I think it would take me 2 hours to describe the use cases for healthcare. But what I do have to say that with the AI, what we're able to do in terms of clinical outcomes are far better. To be able to do it at scale is something that is a challenge that we currently face. But in a way, we're fortunate because if you think of India, and you think of the National Health Mission, the National Digital Health Mission, you already have 750 records, and therefore there is data available, there is portability available in terms and interoperability. So I think for the healthcare systems, there is huge potential. And I think for all of us who are running healthcare organizations, and I must be frank, I am strategy and finance at Apollo. I started by thinking of it as a cost because we work with Microsoft and work with, we do the co-pilot. We look at investments in predictive healthcare, and they're all currently investments. So we've moved from costs to investments. And I think for us, it is essential. It is like electricity. It's like plasma. You have to do it because you will be irrelevant in the future. And pioneers like us have to lead the way in adoption, in utilization, and making sure that we're able to scale it. India is the only country where we can take it to scale and become a model for the global south.
We have the people with skills. We have the data as well, right? I mean, I think the scale is, of course, very, very large. Mr. Johansson, if I can come to you, sir, with specifically in your business, I mean, I think you've offered India to put its own sort of systems AI into the Gripen fighter planes. If just talk to us about that. Why is that better why is it necessary rather for India to do it rather than sort of buy something with like a black box which you don't understand? Just talk us through it.
Now, first of all, of course, I would love to see India buying the Gripen aircraft, but that's not happened yet.
I said
but
you're right. You offered.
Right. We have offered you that capability, and why is that important? Well, obviously, if you have your own data, that is the key, so to say. Okay, you can. There are tricks, of course, to the models and the neural nets and layers, what have you, to optimize things, but the important thing is data, and the data will be the thing that must be sovereign and very sensitive for a country. It will be how you operate something, how you define your capabilities to sort of countermeasure the threat that you are exposed to. So what you do with that sort of AI agent is up to you, and that's why we're just offering an architecture, a platform where you can implement an AI agent, and we've already done that, flying it like that, and you would get your capability that is adapted to your environment, your threat environment, which is actually a very unique thing that not any other fighter capability can do.
Is AI adoption, I mean, very fast in your industry, defense?
Absolutely. I mean, look at the amount of data, the sensor data that you have to sort of digest. You can't do that in sort of the usual way. You have to use AI to quickly get to a situation awareness picture to provide something for the decision maker, the end user. But I have to say that we have a policy making sure that it's not an autonomous system in the sense that an AI agent would deliver sort of a weapon capability. There's always a decision maker in that loop. But to quickly get a view of what's going on so you can make the wise decision is absolutely, without AI, it wouldn't be possible.
I mean, I guess drones is one area, right, where we were seeing adoption very, very fast.
No, absolutely. I mean, you can't do swarm technology, you can't do any type of mission, surveillance, if you don't use AI. It's impossible. So, of course, it's adopting in a very quick way, but we have to find a way of regulating the dangerous part of this. And I'm afraid that every country is not thinking in that direction. We are in the Western democracies and India and so forth, but many countries are using the things the best way they can, which is very dangerous.
Reminds me of Skynet. I mean, if I can use that, I don't know if that's that's the kind of rogue AI you're talking about with weapons capabilities. That sounds scary, sir. But yeah, I mean, you got to have guardrails, as you said, most definitely. In terms of delivering some of these, designing new systems, etc., is AI being used at a high level in that as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, today you don't do sort of development and complex systems in the traditional sequential way, building prototypes, testing and what have you. You use digital twins. And what you can do in a virtual environment with AI is so complex and so capable, so you can go very far before you have actually start to build something, which is a very efficient way of developing complex systems. It's not only maths anymore, it's actually AI you use.
Madam Reddy has a flight to catch. I'm going to give you, you have a hard stop, ma'am, right? So I'm going to just ask you just one last question, and then I think the traffic is bad. Sweden and India, right? Sweden is known for cutting-edge technology, innovation. India, as you said, has got scale, has got data. How can both countries collaborate in your sector, for example, and outside of it as well?
So in our sector, I think the first thing is to recognize that not just in our sector, but India as a whole, our spending on research is only 2%, less than 2% of GDP. In Sweden, it is much higher. I don't have the absolute figure. But if you go to institutes like the Karolinska Institute, which we are currently working with, they are protocols that have already evolved in the oncology space. So clearly, you know, there is the ability to collaborate with Sweden in terms of high-end clinical protocols. Sweden has this mission, which is Vision Zero, which is absolute safety, no risk, 100% safety, and I think that is essential for us as we think of scaling AI. The third area of collaboration is, of course, medtech, and for me, the fourth is they have such a vibrant stock exchange. I'm sitting next to an investor. We need capital. We need intellectual property, and I think when we have a combination of both of this, we have global scale, we have a market, and I think we can make a huge impact on the global south.
Well, we certainly hope so, ma'am. Thank you very much for that. A round of applause for Mrs. Reddy. She has to leave us. She has a flight to catch. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. We'll continue the conversation here. Hari, I just wanted to ask you, when you started investing, not started investing, but I mean, say 5 years back, was AI and AI potential disruption a big factor in it, or not really? It's suddenly come into focus, sharper focus now.
Like I said, we started investing in AI and Motherbrain in 2016. So we were always aware of the impact of AI. And to take a step back, EGT is actually headquartered in Stockholm. We are founded by the Wallenberg family. And if you look at the Wallenberg family, they've been around for 170 years. They've gone through world wars, industrial revolution.
Marcus was supposed to be here, of course, unfortunately.
Yeah, so,
yes.
And within EGT, we have something called future proofing, okay, because, we have something that, that says that Wallenbergs have something that's something to the effect that the only tradition worth keeping is, getting ready for the future, right? So we've always been tech and future friendly. But even we have been surprised a bit by the scale and the pace at which it is changing. It's also one of the things to remember is peak AI is probably not in our lifetime. Okay, it's going to take many decades, and AI is going to get continuously better. And so, how can we integrate it into our lives, and so if you can embrace it quickly and integrate into our lives, that actually positions all of our investments in a better way. That's how we're looking at AI.
I know it's an unfair question, but if I were to list 3 industries which you think, for the lack of a better way to put it, get hurt because of AI, and 3 industries where this is a significant tailwind, Hari.
That is a bit of an unfair question because we have so much so much exposure to different industry segments. But let me say that every industry can adapt AI to make it supercharged. For example, Healthcare, we take 10 years to discover a new medicine. Can we use AI models to pick these molecules? We have an investment in the largest IVF chain in India. Can we use AI to pick, the right egg, for example, that can fertilize quickly? So healthcare, there is tremendous opportunity to impact the lives of people. So personally, for me, I think the impact of AI on healthcare can transform so many lives, and so it's really something for us to think about. So, but the same way AI can transform education, for example, in a country like India, where we have so many young people, 1 billion people less than 30 years of age. How can we use AI to transform education? So just being optimistic about the use of AI is important, and just adapting it and using it. I really don't think that there is any industry at risk of extinction because of AI, because the ones who can adapt quickly, even to Devjani's point about how the IT services industry has been has been written off so many times. I would say that as long as we can adapt and reimagine our business models, I don't think there's anything that can go extinct because of AI.
Mr. Bill, as a former leader of Sweden, and we all talk about industries, and there's defense, and there's healthcare, and there's IT services, and there's this and that. But is there a larger question which governments start to need to think about, which is, Mr. Vinod Khosla was here yesterday, and he's been saying by 2050, Mr. Khosla has said that there aren't going to be any jobs, and how does one do we need to consider of course there's an extreme point of view, but do governments need to start to think about those kind of scenarios of, people have for years now spoken about a universal basic income, or
well, there's an academic debate about this, as you notice, and then people are looking at signs of the job market really being affected, and there are some preliminary signs of AI started to have an impact on specific industries in terms of employment, but we will also see other services growing. So far, the history of humanity, if I might be somewhat larger, has always been that, new technologies does replace old jobs, sometimes massively, sometimes with very disruptive effects, but there has always so far been other jobs coming. And I don't think there's any reason whatsoever to assume that this particular fairly dramatic transition that we are into, that will be different. I see that in some of the things that I deal with, certainly some things are disappearing and can be replaced by AI, but I see some things are added, because there are things that we can now do with AI that we couldn't even contemplate doing previously. So net effect remains to be seen, debate is there, but I not belong to the pessimists.
Hari, I don't know, you're smiling, but do you have any thoughts on this? Or
on the lack of jobs by 2050, is that?
Yeah, I'm just using that. It's an extreme point. I'm just exaggerating perhaps, but I'm not exaggerating. It was Mr. Khosla who said it. I'm just only paraphrasing him. But is that, they all, of course, whenever that, the jobs question that comes up, the basic underlying thesis is that it's the age of abundance. Cost of production is going to go down. Cost of labor is going to go down. So then, how does all of it work out? Do we not need to start to think about, start to think about this?
So, at least in our experience with evolution of technology, right? If you look at internet, for example, when the first days of the internet, people said that, hey, everything is going to change magically, and businesses are going to change. It did change. And there were some born on the internet companies like Amazon, but there are also companies like, Costco, for example, that adapted its business. Every business had to adapt to it, right? And we are maybe 40 years after the invention of the internet, even in a market like India, so many businesses are still internet dark, right? So if I were to take a bet from 2026 to 2050, will we reach that age of abundance? I would say that probably not, but in maybe 100 years, peak AI comes. Is that going to happen? I think it's a little bit more likely. Like if you look at, can we use AI to solve traffic problems in India? That'll be a good outcome. So we have so many problems still that need solving. So while I'm optimistic about how we can adapt technology, I still think that life is complex, and to believe that just one technology can be a magic wand, I think maybe too optimistic.
Fair enough. Mr. Johansson, just coming back to the India-Sweden partnership, exchange of ideas, technology, etc. As you said, you're hopeful with that fighter order, but what other levels do you think this partnership can work? And what's the way forward as you see it?
But so many other things as well, of course, than just talking about sort of one platform or one capability. I think we already have a good presence, good collaboration, good network of companies we're working with. I think the new big thing is that in our business, everything becomes dual use. So all the startups that we work with, we've changed our mind about sort of acquiring everyone that has great technology. That's not the way forward. You have to create your ecosystems where companies, smaller companies, medium-sized companies can do both. They can have a commercialized sort of civil application or several, and we can sort of absorb or adapt the technology that they use. So of course we want to find the best technology, but not really sort of just bring them in and make them defense companies, but rather make sure that the technology is adopted. And that is a whole new sort of approach to creating capabilities. And then you have the whole thing about everything we do is not sort of military, it's also used for infrastructure, protection, cybersecurity, the total defense perspective of a society. So many things are changing in that direction. Here, startups and great companies and technologies in India can absolutely be part of our ecosystem.
Well, I think I could go on. It's an interesting chat. It's a very diverse chat. We can go in so many different directions. But for now, I'll thank all of you for being a wonderful audience. I know it's a noisy environment. Apologies, we had to move in because of course, the weather, etc. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Bill, Hari, and Mr. Johansson for being part of this. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, speakers, for that very engaging discussion. Thank you, Prashant. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for a special CSIS and CNBC-TV18 joint initiative. Center for Strategic and International Studies, which is America's leading think tank and India's leading business channel, they've both come together to bring you a series of shows on India's AI journey, and it's now time for us to discuss what should be the big deliverables from India AI Impact Summit. And to take this conversation forward, may I now invite Shruti Mishra, Deputy Editor, CNBC-TV18, and please join me in welcoming her esteemed panelist, Gregory C. Allen, Senior Advisor, Vadhvani AI Center at CSIS, Alok Mehta, Director, Vadhvani AI Center at CSIS, and Natasha Crampton, Vice President, Chief Responsible AI Officer, Microsoft. Over to you, Shruti.
Thank you, Swati. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Now, AI, as we all know, is no longer just about algorithms. It's about power, partnerships, and geopolitics. From semiconductor export controls and US-China tech tensions to India's sovereign AI push, the global race is accelerating. But scale isn't enough. The real question is, who builds AI that the world can trust? So what does a credible, democratic AI ecosystem look like? And can partnerships truly deliver at scale? Let's find out. Thank you so much for your time today. Let me quickly start with Natasha with a broad question. Microsoft has announced a $50 billion commitment to the Global South by the end of this decade. And here we have the India AI Summit, one of the largest global AI gatherings. What does it mean for India to be sort of hosting the summit at this scale? You know, how significant is this moment for India's role in sort of shaping the global AI order?
Well, first, it's wonderful to be here with everyone today. I think what India hosting this Impact Summit really shows is that AI diffusion has become a core strategic question. It is not an open question as to whether the technology will diffuse. The question is, will it diffuse evenly?
Yes.
And actually what we're seeing so far is that is not the case. We're seeing adoption in the global north be roughly double what we see in the global south. And I think India is really uniquely placed here to drive impact. It's a large democracy. It has a large developer ecosystem. It also has scale and diversity needs that really reflect very many of the needs in the global south. So this is really the hypothesis behind our $50 billion investment. We're here because we think we need to build infrastructure and skills, multilingual capability, local innovation, and making sure that we are measuring our progress.
Sure. You know, Gregory, coming to you in your recent AI policy podcast, you spoke about the geopolitical risk of black box models. In 2026, where, you know, we've seen some nations use AI as mass surveillance, how do countries really like the US and the India build what you've described as democratic AI shield that perhaps developing nations can genuinely trust?
Well, I think there's actually a lot of good news on this score. The term black box AI was absolutely true 5 years ago, 10 years ago, but we've actually seen a great deal of technical progress in terms of understanding what's under the hood, how these works. And understanding what is going on is a critical underpinning of knowing that it's going to work reliably and as intended over the full range of uses. You know, at this India AI Summit, we've heard a lot about trust, but we don't want you to just trust blindly. We want to earn and deserve your trust, not just have it. And in terms of where we are technically, in terms of where we are procedurally, it's actually dramatically better than it was even just 12 months ago.
Okay.
And I think that's why adoption continues to accelerate.
So, you know, is the world formally in sort of a AI Cold War? Would you say that? And if so, does India have the strategic autonomy to sort of collaborate with the US while maintaining flexibility with other global players?
Well, I think there's a few things that I would say there. First of which is it's true that the US AI Action Plan explicitly compared the AI race to the space race during the Cold War. This is a narrative that's very prominent in American politics and Chinese politics. In terms of India, what we've seen recently is that with the conclusion of the US-India trade agreement, there's a lot of positive momentum in this relationship. In fact, Undersecretary of State Jacob Hellberg just invited India to join the Pax Silica initiative about resilient supply chains focused on AI and semiconductors. I wouldn't be surprised if that announcement comes this very week at this very summit. So US and India are drawing closer together.
Well, fingers crossed. You know, before I get you to Alok, Gregory, one more question for you. You know, you've been at the center of the debate of the GPU export controls. Now, given India's evolved trusted partner status in 2026, is Washington now sort of comfortable providing access to the highest end AI chips to India, or are we still seeing some red lines?
I think that's what the Pax Silica agreement is going to solve and resolve in terms of an answer to the question. But to a certain extent, it was already resolved. When you see companies like Microsoft, AWS, Google investing tens of billions of dollars in AI infrastructure, what's inside that AI infrastructure? It's the most advanced chips. So the point is, these products are already in India. They're going to come to India at a massive, massive scale. And so, yes, the US and India are going to be partners at the AI frontier.
All right, Alok, let me get you in now. You know, India wants to deploy AI at population scale, you know, be it agriculture, healthcare, or skilling. So can enterprise AI really scale without strong public infrastructure underneath it? Or is DPI now the core strategic AI asset?
Yeah, I think what DPI shows is that it is possible for a country like India to innovate at the application level. And I think that they're well positioned to continue to innovate when it comes to AI. So that they may not have been the leader when it came to broadband infrastructure, but they really were pioneers in all sorts of payment systems, identification systems, and privacy technology. And I think that that same spirit and ethos can be brought to AI applications. I think there are a number of realms in India, things like agriculture, medicine, linguistics, and translation, that India is well posed to be a world leader in.
All right. Gregory, you've also written extensively on DeepSeek and efficiency-driven models. So what can India really draw from that kind of frugal innovation as it builds sovereign AI capabilities on a far tighter budget than Silicon Valley?
Well, I think the DeepSeek moment was a seismic event in the US stock market, in the global media ecosystem, but it was vastly overhyped. I mean, the reality is it was promoted as something that was going to put NVIDIA out of business. Does NVIDIA look like it's really struggling right now? Now, in terms of algorithmic efficiency, in terms of how much intelligence you can get out of every input unit of computation, that is an exponential trend that has been going on for more than a decade. And DeepSeek did demonstrate another level of algorithmic efficiency. But that is just one dot on the graph, and every other dot on that graph comes from American companies, UK companies, et cetera, and all of those efficiency gains are being plowed back into American companies, which are continuing to build data centers that don't just have one GPU or hundreds of GPUs, but now this year, millions of GPUs. So the demand for compute continues to go, and the United States continues to enjoy a significant advantage there.
Okay. Alok, you've warned sort of about the state-level AI regulations in the US creating a patchwork of compliance standards. As Indian states like, we've got Tamil Nadu and Telangana draft their own AI frameworks, how do we avoid a compliance patchwork that sort of slows down enterprise adoption?
Yeah, well, what I hope India does is sort of learn some lessons from the US, where we've had very unproductive tensions between state attempts to regulate AI and federal attempts. So I think the approach here is that there are some things that are better suited for regulation at the federal level. So these are things that affect technology across all states or universally. And so things like privacy, regulation of model development, this is important to do at the federal level so you avoid having companies have to have different compliance regimes all across different states and even different countries. What states, I think, are well positioned to do are they're closest to the kinds of problems affecting people. And so they're really well positioned to help shape applications, shape use cases that will really help people. And I think the other thing states can really do is that they are places where you can trial regulation in a small scale. So maybe it's not appropriate to initially pass something that affects 1 billion people, but you can pass regulation at a smaller level, learn lessons, and then the federal government can adopt those lessons, figure out what works, and bring that to the national level.
Well, great insights there. Natasha, coming back to you, you've been Microsoft's Chief Responsible Officer since 2019, the first such role in the industry. When, enterprises deploy AI at scale, what's the biggest gap that you see between responsible AI principles on paper and actual implementation in production?
So you hit the nail on the head. Principles are essential in this space, but they're definitely not enough alone. And so the gap that needs to be filled is how you turn a high-level commitment to transparency into real patterns and practices that you can adopt every day. So what I see happening in this front in India is that because of the real focus on impact for people to expand opportunity, we see very applied uses of AI. We can build patterns where we're designing responsible guardrails into those systems from the very beginning, measuring them, making sure that they perform not just well in the lab, but in the world as well. So it's all about making sure that there are these tools and practices to really make this real at scale, so that we can make sure that we are delivering the benefits of this technology broadly.
All right. Alok, coming back to you, we all know enterprise AI is accelerating, but trust remains the friction point. From a governance standpoint, what does a truly trusted AI system require? Does it require data localization, open models? What does it truly require?
I think that really depends in part on where you are and what country you are. But I do think there are some basic things that we've seen around the world that that give an indication of what you need for people to trust AI technology. So that is a government that is responsive to the needs of the people and sort of understands what it is that they're looking for. Things like privacy baseline protections are important. People want to be able to trust that the technology that they're working on working with will protect their data. And I think that a big part of trust is an idea that the government will continue to engage and evolve their policies as technology updates. So we've seen rapid innovation in AI, and I think an important part of the trust here is that a clear sign from governments that they will continue to evolve how they think about AI as the technology develops.
All right. Natasha, on similar lines, companies, while they are producing more AI tools and reports, yet compliance confidence is shrinking. As enterprises today race to deploy generative AI, what does smart, agile compliance look like? Governance that sort of reduces risk than just creating paperwork.
Absolutely. I think we think about governance as being a real enabler of adoption, but it does need to be smart governance. So I think first you need to start with a clear point of view about the outcomes that you are trying to drive. How is it that this AI system will help this agricultural community? How is it that this AI system will help improve a healthcare outcome? You need to know what you're seeking to achieve, number one. You then need to find ways to measure that you are getting to that outcome. I think measurement here is just a critical best practice that we need to apply across the board. Third, we should see AI as a tool that we can use for the smart governance of AI. There are lots of ways that we can scale up our work by using AI effectively in a governance context, and this is part of what we do at Microsoft on a day-to-day basis.
Sure. Natasha, in the beginning, you sort of mentioned that AI usage in the global north is roughly double that of the global south, and that gap is widening. So beyond infrastructure, what are the critical levers that are needed to ensure that AI benefits are distributed more broadly?
Absolutely. I'd point to three critical interventions. First, skilling. What we know from the history of general purpose technologies like electricity, like AI, is that the economies that embrace them the best and do sort of grow their economies and their societal opportunity off the back of it, they're not necessarily the inventors of the technology. They are the largest adopters of the technology. And what's the key unlock that you need to adopt broadly? You need broad-based skilling programs. So skilling is a critical enabler here. Second, we need to make sure that we've got AI systems that work well in the languages that people use. This has been a key part of the discussion here at the India AI Impact Summit. India has a beautiful tradition of linguistic and cultural diversity. We need to make sure that all of those spoken languages are well represented in the systems that are being used broadly around the world. The third intervention that I'd point to is we really need to track the data that shows how AI is being adopted across the economy. We need to see that data so that we can more precisely target future interventions. We might need more infrastructure in some places. We might need more skilling. We might need broader access to the technology. But we need to study that adoption data so that we can really guide future investments.
All right. Alok, from an India point of view, with nearly 5 million Indians in IT services, how do we design sort of a safety net that not just protects jobs, but actively funds transitions into AI-augmented roles? How do we do that? And, Gregory, feel free to add to him. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a very important question, and I think one we need to directly address head on. This is something we're thinking a lot about at CSIS. I think I think it's very likely that we'll see significant job losses. Certainly, there will be significant job transitions. Everyone's job will be different in an age of AI. And I think what we really need to do is we just need more ammunition in terms of our policy responses. So you'll hear talk about reskilling. I think that's an important component here. But I think also important are things like help with job placement, sort of help with the transition between
Absolutely,
jobs,
yeah.
as well as sort of thinking about the institutions of government and of society in terms of attitude towards jobs, support when people are transitioning between jobs, how employers think about gaps on resumes or gaps in employment. I think all of that is important. We need many more solutions so we can address this in many different ways.
What more solutions? How do we protect jobs?
Well, I think one thing to note here is that every technology that dramatically improves the productivity of workers has the potential for, if not job destruction, at least job disruption. So it may be the case that those productivity benefits, when they are plowed back into the economy, are actually going to create more demand for more workers. But there will still be this period of displacement as roles are dealt with. Just to think about it, the job of computer programmer didn't even really exist 50 years ago, right?
Yes.
And as we created the industry of computers, we got rid of the job of doing mathematics by pen and paper, but we created this new series of jobs of computer programmers. And we're already seeing some hints of the new job categories that are going to exist, but we need to spend more time imagining what the skills demands of the future are and ensuring that populations are ready to serve the needs of the future economy.
Absolutely. And on the topic of reskilling, Natasha, Microsoft has committed to equipping 20 million people in India with AI skills by 2030, training 2 billion educators and localizing co-pilot data processing. When democracies talk about trusted AI partnerships, what does measurable success really look like on ground?
I think this is a great question because, we shouldn't just be thinking about the scale of announcements. We should be thinking about the concrete improvements that we're making to people's lives as a consequence of this skilling effort. So first, to get to real outcomes here, we have to be clear about what the path to impact is. For our skilling commitment, we are going to make sure that 20 million teachers have the skills to thrive in the classroom, work with their students in an AI-powered world. But skilling alone would not be enough. We need to make sure there is that multilingual capability in the technology itself. We need to make sure that there is the access to the technology. So we've got to be clear about first what the path to impact is. Second, we have to get back to the outcomes. We have to make sure that it's the outcome that we measure is not just the number of teachers that have completed the program, but what are the educational outcomes that we have improved. And say, third, we want to make sure that this is not a standalone, separated from the community type of skilling effort. We have to make sure that our teachers are working closely with the parents, the broader community around the education system to make sure that there is that participation, there is that trust, because ultimately it is going to take broad community participation to really take full advantage of the benefits of this technology.
All right, moving on, Gregory, at this summit, you're also chairing a session on national security readiness. What is the biggest hidden threat that democracies like the India and US face at the intersection of AI and shared digital infrastructure?
Well, as computers have gotten more sophisticated, we've relied upon them for more things. And what that means is that the threats to that computer infrastructure becomes bigger in magnitude and impact if there's some kind of disruption.
Cyber escalation, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, just to put it in one terms, if you drive a car today and somebody hacks your car, maybe they can prevent you from turning it on. In the future, where more and more cars are autonomous, if they hack your car, maybe they can drive you off a cliff, right? I'm exaggerating for effect, but the basic point is as AI enables us to rely more and more on automation, the scale of cyber attacks aimed at that automation and associated vulnerabilities has a bigger and bigger potential. The good news here is that AI is a powerful general purpose technology, which means it has big benefits to cyber offense, which can be a little bit frightening, but also big benefits to cyber defense.
All right. We have a few minutes left, so I'll just wrap up quickly. But looking ahead to 2030, Gregory, what does a meaningful India-US partnership look like? Is it joint model training, semiconductor fabrication, collaboration, or sharing export control alignment?
Well, if you look at what's going on just in India, I mean, India has been in a real fight, a military fight with China in just recent years. And the United States was quick to offer whatever support, diplomatically and otherwise, that it could. So I think India knows who its friends are in this story. And the other good news is that as we look to the future of de-risking, whether that's from an economic coercion perspective, actually India is in a great position to benefit from countries around the world looking to China as a threat. There's an opportunity for India to sort of pick up the slack in manufacturing, in digital services, and it's also an attractive consumer market for all different kinds of economic activity.
All right, Alok, final question. If you were advising Indian policymakers today, what is that one non-negotiable priority for AI leadership over the next 3 years?
Yeah, I think that trying to compete in developing frontier models is not the right solution. I think just as India did with its digital public infrastructure, its advantage is in building applications that sit on top of these models. And really, the government should focus on figuring out the use cases that are unique to India, figuring out the advantages it has in data and, for example, linguistic data, making sure that that data is available to train models, and facilitating the deployment of these applications so that they can touch the lives of people around the country.
All right, Natasha, final words. As enterprises adopt co-pilot systems, agentic AI, how do we ensure human oversight remains meaningful, especially in sectors like healthcare, defense, finance?
So designing the systems with humans in the loop is going to be an essential step at this stage of the capabilities development. So making sure that those humans are at the right points and validating steps is the most important thing right now. Now, as the systems increase in their capability, we will be building in different forms of human oversight. But I think we've got to come back to what is true for AI systems of the past and AI systems of the future, which is that they are there to empower people. There are design patterns that you follow to achieve that end, but we need to just always keep in mind these are tools to empower people to have more impact.
Absolutely. And on that note, it's time for me to wrap up our conversation. Many thanks for your invaluable insights. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shruti. Thank you, panelists, for that very informative session. Well, ladies and gentlemen, moving on to our next conversation. Now, behind every AI breakthrough lies resilient digital infrastructure, platforms, cloud ecosystems, and open collaboration models that power transformation at scale. Our next guest brings over 25 years of leadership across Microsoft, McKinsey, and IBM, and now leads one of the world's most trusted open source companies in India. Please join me in welcoming Navtesh Singh Bal, Vice President and General Manager, Red Hat India and South Asia. And to moderate this conversation, please welcome CNBC-TV18's Ashmit Kumar. A round of applause for him.
Navtesh, great speaking to you again. We just had a very engaging conversation in the morning. Between then and now, how many steps have you done?
10,000.
Fantastic. That's actually, I was speaking to a few colleagues who'd done somewhere in the vicinity of 15 to 20,000. It's been that kind of day, it's been that kind of week, and in fact, just continuing this momentum forward. Navtesh, a lot of interesting takeaways from the conversations that we had in the morning and then subsequently through the day as well. Let's take that forward. Let's talk about, in the morning, we spoke about open source models, about how it offers greater customizations, how it offers greater efficiencies. Taking it a step forward, how do we then look at open source models when we look at it from a sovereign tech perspective? We've seen some big announcements earlier today. How does this open source journey move forward when we look at sovereign tech, homegrown Indian tech?
Yeah. No, thanks. Can you hear me? Okay, good. No, I think the first thing at a sovereign level, right, the piece which is most important is control. And there is no control if your ecosystem is locked and if your stacks are locked. So the danger when you have a new technology coming in, which is at an early stage of adoption, is because people treat it like an arms race and everybody is ready to get started on it. And in the process, what they do is they sign off their control to somebody else. Now, what India needs to do from a sovereign perspective, right, is to make sure that the stack itself is open by design, where the source code is with the Indian companies, with the government. Number two, the accelerators, by the way, are, they are fungible in the sense you can use fit-for-purpose accelerators. The models, you should be able to pick and choose the ones which you want. You should be able to distill your own models. I'm not talking about training, I'm talking about inferencing. And whichever way you do, you should have the ability to retain control even if somebody shuts it down for you, right? Sure. So when people do talk about responsible AI, they talk about AI being brought into the market. Nobody actually talks about the fact that you need control, and for control you need, at the heart of it, open source, which actually allows you to control the source code, which then, you can do wonderful things with it. And by the way, it's like buying insurance. We don't think about it every day, but when the risk really turns up and you don't have the keys to the house, you have a problem. You get left out, right? So let's make sure we don't get locked into that place.
I think one can always trust you for these very interesting analogies. But taking this conversation a step further, give us a sense when we talk of readiness from an AI standpoint. From your conversations with clients, with prospective clients, how would you rank the state of readiness of these enterprises to actually, one, make that transition, two, have that understanding of open source customization, and three, deploy at scale?
Okay. So listen, so what's happened over the last 2 to 3 years is that A has become a boardroom topic. And because it's become a boardroom topic, there's a push top-down for everybody to deploy and play around with AI. So what the IT leaders have done, they've actually let 1,000 flowers bloom, right? So people are actually signing up on POCs in mass, which is great. At an early stage of a technology, that's great, right? So there's a lot of excitement and energy which get built in. Now, somewhere in the middle, you actually also have a technology which is, by the way, because it's early stage, by definition is evolving really fast. So you have capital investments which are becoming obsolete before they are getting deployed, okay? And while you do this, you have a skilling issue, which my previous panelists talked about, where people are still learning, and before they learn something, something new shows up. So now this is the mix we find ourselves in, okay? So we are at a stage now where I believe that this will pick up. People will start thinking platformization going forward. They will try to make sure that their developers, the way they develop apps, that's the way they deploy AI, so which means that there will be some platforms needed, from app mod to AI, AI development. While they do all that, they also need to re-architect workflows so that you actually get productivity and other business benefits out of this. And hence, I was a McKinsey consultant for 20 years, right? So business transformations are not easy. Okay, so there's a lot of excitement at the start. Everybody gets excited, and then you enter the valley of despair, which is when people don't see any sense coming out of what you did, and then you again take off, which is when you see real benefits. I think we are at this early exuberant stage in the market. We will go through our valley of despair, and then we will come out of it, and then we'll ask for real return on investment. And that's when the transformations will happen. So personally, I would think this will be anywhere between a 5 to 7 year game for the Indian market. Some sectors are ahead, some behind. But if we don't do this, we actually lose the global productivity. We lose the global productivity battle, right? And hence, by the way, for India, it's super critical that we get this right over the next 5 to 7 years.
That's an interesting caption that you've given us, the valley of despair. But since you are speaking of the valley of despair post the initial euphoria after it fades away, tell us, from your experience, what would be some of these best practices that you've seen that companies can embrace to get over that period of valley of despair, which is go from a POC to a deployment at scale? Your experience, Red Hat experience from India, from across geographies.
Yeah, so few best practices, or at least few practices. We'll say whether they're best or not. I think the first one is that you have to think platforms. You cannot expect your IT teams to learn everything new. So you have to make sure that AI development in the context of an organization is similar to how apps get developed. So I think you need to have some platform which allows you to do that, okay? You have to think that through right at the start before you make too many big capital investments. Number two, don't get locked into any single stack. Don't get locked into any single stack, because sooner or later you will realize that it's actually the inferencing where the cost will lie, right? If you took the total NPV of a solution, 80% will be in inferencing and 20% will be upfront. So if you get locked into a stack, you actually end up paying for inferencing much more in the longer context. Think of it as OPEX and CAPEX, right? You don't buy a plane for capital, you buy a plane for lower operating costs. You have to treat AI like that, right? So there is the second piece. I think the third one is you need to be open source by design. So you should be in a position where you can go to any cloud. You can do it on-prem, you can do it hybrid, you can do it on the cloud. You can use any accelerator, you can use any model. Okay, that fungibility is extremely important. And while you do all that, don't forget there's a human element here. I mean, it was, you know, we've been skirting around the topic of how many jobs are we going to lose. I think the previous speaker from Vadvani Foundation did actually put a very direct hypothesis out there. This is a massive people transformation. And unless you think through the workflows, the process flows, how do you actually get your employee base bought into it? This transformation will not go ahead, right? And 60% of transformations fail because of softer reasons, which is people reasons. So those are the 4 or 5 things I would say we have to keep in mind if you really have to get AI to get deployed at scale.
I want to labor on one particular point that you, in fact, told us about, which is CAPEX versus OPEX. Just dwelling on that point, is that one assessment that boards, according to you, are getting wrong, that they're too focused on that initial euphoria, on the initial CAPEX, while perhaps not accounting for the OPEX going forward and the impact that it will finally have on the bottom line?
No, listen, this is again very early stage in the S-curve of a technology, right? It's not that you have tons and tons of options of accelerators out there that you can actually, by the way, figure out the lowest cost one out there. I think what people will do is they will actually make a bunch of investments. They will try to work them through. Some of them will become obsolete. Then, hopefully, by that time the technology catches up, you actually have more competition. And then people start thinking about ROIC on this, right? Sure. So it happens in every market. It happens in every market, and I think that is, by the way, to an extent, India's advantage. That we are actually a little bit behind. We don't have that much technological debt. If we are smart, we learn from what others are doing and leapfrog. And that's why even cloud, by the way, adoption in India has been higher than anywhere else, right? Because people actually naturally tend to go down the OPEX route and then make a capital investment after they've figured out what they're doing. So I guess in AI, you will find something very similar. People will not be building their own stacks. They'll be doing this to a large extent on the cloud. They'll figure out the experiment, get it right, and then bring it in to cut down the cost, right? So I think we have a little bit of that window. But that said, boardrooms are actually, you know, that's what they do best. They get initiatives started. And the best way to get an initiative started is to write out a check out there and get somebody to buy something, right? And everybody feels very happy that we've started. But it's only later you realize that once you've signed the check, you know, it takes time to actually cash it and, you know, make some money out of it, right?
We're running out of time. I'll just come to you for a quick last 30-seconder. One thing that excites you, one thing that causes concern for you.
With respect to AI?
With respect to AI.
I think AI, by the way, will potentially make India leap globally in its competitiveness. Okay? That, by the way, I'm 100% convinced about. We missed the bus on manufacturing with respect to China. We are not naturally beset with that much natural resources. But when you add people ingenuity with AI together, I think cost curve after cost curve, we can be on the leftmost side of the cost curve, right? So that's piece one. What worries me is that if we don't get that dividend right, then how do you actually make sure that you're able to, by the way, literally absorb the 1.2 billion people out there, right? So I think like Sweden, by the way, which was very exciting today, you have an 8 million population country with more than 25 large MNCs, including Spotify, you know, SKF, and going after the global market. There was a reason why they were here, which is for the market. I think that is what AI positions us to do. India for the world. So anybody who says AI for India is a bad idea, I think it's a bad answer. It's AI for India for the world. If we go down that route, then we can actually naturally absorb these billion people. And by the way, guess we'll actually have a much better standard of living. We'll be contributing back to the world. And I think we'll all be very happy with where we landed up, right?
Right, Navtej, thanks a lot for that glass half full perspective to where things can go from here. I'd like to thank you once again for being a part of this conversation. Thanks. Lovely speaking to you.
Thank you, Navtej. Thank you, Ashmit. May I request Ashmit to please stay back for our next conversation as well? Well, ladies and gentlemen, scaling AI demands a critical breakthrough. Powerful compute without exponential energy costs. Our next guest is a serial entrepreneur who built a billion-dollar business before founding a company reimagining AI infrastructure faster, smarter, and far more energy efficient. Please join me in welcoming Sid Sheth, founder, president, and CEO, D-Matrix. A huge round of applause for him.
Nice to see you. I believe we are the last ones, right?
I think the show must go on.
Okay. Just want to make sure we keep it entertaining for the crowd here. Thanks for staying back.
But Sid, you're operating in a very interesting space. For the benefit of our viewers, the broader audience that's watching us, help us break this down. You've introduced this concept of DIMC, which is digital in-memory compute. And using that, you're trying to position D-Matrix as a direct competitor to the NVIDIAs, AMDs of the world. Break that down in simple language. What does that translate into? What does that actually mean?
Sure. So I think let's take a step back, right? A lot of talk about training and inference today. Last 10 years of AI have been all about training, right? A lot of emphasis on training new models, unleashing new capabilities. And we got to a point with ChatGPT in 2022 where for the first time we generalized the capabilities of AI, right? Otherwise it's very, very specialized, but it really became general. Inference became the topic of conversation. Everyone's like, oh wow, I can actually use this. Everyone can use it. This is now truly available to everyone and it is relevant for everyone. Then we had the DeepSeek moment in early 2025. And what that led to was it kind of took inference to the next step, right? The usability of AI went to the next step because what DeepSeek really taught us was you don't really need big AI, right? You need you could take big models, distill them down to smaller models, and essentially retain a lot of the capabilities of the big models in the small models. So it became about efficient AI, right? And also DeepSeek was the first open source reasoning model that was launched into the world. And after that, the floodgates opened up and the next 6 months of 2025 was all about, every flavor of reasoning model that came out, right? And so this is for the first time AI moved from one-shot thinking to essentially deep thinking, right? You could pose an abstract question, it broke it down, reasoned through the different steps and then presented an answer. And that has led to the age of inference, right? So I like to say, 2025 was really the year where the world entered the age of inference and compute infrastructure started essentially migrating away from training only infrastructure to training plus inference, right? That's where D-Matrix comes in. So we started the company in 2019 with a singular vision to really build the world's most efficient inferencing hardware, inference silicon, inference and everything, the solution that goes around it, right? So that the core of the solution is our computing hardware, which is what, when you refer to the DIMC, that is the digital in-memory compute. And, taking the jargon aside, the core of the idea is very simple. What is inference? When you run inference, what happens? You need data, you have compute, the compute needs access to data. So the compute keeps fetching the data from memory, does all the compute and then sends the data back, right? So you're essentially taking data from memory, sending it to compute and sending it back. So you're making all these trips between data and compute and memory, which is where you spend a lot of energy and a lot of time, which is what makes AI inefficient, right? So what we did was we said, simple idea. We're going to take compute, we're going to take memory and put it together, integrate it into a common substrate. And that meant you saved a lot of time and a lot of energy. So pretty simple. I mean, it's, there's a lot of complexity in, how we do it. But fundamentally, the idea is about compute and memory integration. GPUs today don't do it, right? The GPU is a 30-year-old compute engine, which was built for graphics. Sure. And when AI came along, they essentially retrofitted that compute engine with a new class of memory called HBM. But it is essentially co-packaged. You have, GPU on one side, you have HBM on the other side. Data travels between the two. And that is why GPUs are essentially very power hungry, they're very costly, and they're not as fast. So we fundamentally changed that paradigm with DIMC.
So let me ask you, just a couple of years back, the term GPU was used very selectively in select circles, tech circles in the Bay Area perhaps. Now it's become mainstream. Now it's headline material. We use it in our captions as well. You think that's overrated now? Because you're talking about the age of training being behind us, and now it's the age of inferencing. Is this now the era of specialized chips where D-matrix now comes in?
It is the entry of specialized chips, but I think GPUs have gone, they truly deserve to be mainstream, right? I mean, because anyone who is looking to start their AI journey today needs a GPU, right? You need to on-ramp into your AI journey with the help of a GPU. The ecosystem is built for the GPU. It has been built over like 2 decades, right? The credit should be given to NVIDIA because they really kind of spent 10 years in the wilderness in investing in an ecosystem that eventually became the AI ecosystem, right? So I think there's a reason why they're mainstream today. They started in the universities, they trained students. Those students have now gone on into research labs. Those research labs then, became very, all those researchers there were very familiar with CUDA and how to program a GPU. That led to the Big Bang moment of AI in 2012, which, the AlexNet moment. And then after that, there has been successive, kind of breakthroughs in AI, all built on the top of the GPU. So absolutely deserve to be mainstream. GPUs will be around for a while, not going anywhere. In the race to AGI and super intelligence, I think, all the training will be done on GPUs. But I think you're now entering a heterogeneous world, right? Which is where GPUs and accelerators, or other forms of inferencing hardware will coexist with the GPU. We hope that the D-matrix solution will be one of the breakaway solutions for that age of the inference. And then GPUs continue to kind of dominate in training.
So essentially what you're telling us is that the size of the pie is growing, and
Absolutely.
that's where D-matrix
Yep.
wants to come in. One final question, that when we talk of, you talked about power efficiencies in the first answer. One question that keeps coming up whenever we talk about AI, especially AI compute, is the power-hungry nature of the infrastructure. Is this where perhaps some of these DMIC specialized chips the answer when we're looking at large-scale infrastructure deployment, but also ensuring power efficiency?
Absolutely. So I think that is exactly our mission, right? We focused on fast AI because, when you talk about inference, inference is a very interactive process, right? Like when you deal or when you work with AI, it's a well-known fact now that the faster the AI is, the more likely the user is to stay with the AI, right? Nobody likes an offline experience, right? You like kind of prompt the model, have to walk away for a few minutes, come back and wait for a response, right? So we focused a lot on fast inference, right? How do we make it really rapid, interactive in real time? And that architecture that I talked about helps with that. The second piece of that is the energy efficiency, right? We talked about time and energy, and we save on both with this DIMC architecture. And energy efficiency is critical because right now the way, if you look at GPUs today, they went from GPUs like 6 years ago used to be like 200 watts. The next Rubin GPU that was just announced is a 2000 watt GPU. So it's gone 100x more, 10x more, 200 watts to 2000 watts in a span of 6 years, right? And if you keep rolling that trajectory forward, you can extrapolate that out and you'll realize that there's not enough energy on the planet to run all the inferencing needs, right? So that's why we are talking about data centers in space and how do we get all this energy? We are saying don't brute force the problem. There's a better way of solving the problem. Just make the underlying inferencing hardware more energy efficient. And we can save energy by a factor of like anywhere 6 to 12x on top of the GPU, right? So that would change the slope and the trajectory of energy consumption on the planet, right? Today it goes this way. We can actually flatten that curve.
It's a fascinating conversation and a fascinating journey forward. Sid, I'd like to thank you for taking our time once again for speaking to us, and we hope to connect again to learn more about this journey and that you talked about in terms of more power efficient infrastructure. Thanks once again.
Thank you for having me, guys. Thanks for staying back, everyone.
Thank you, Ashmit. Thank you so much, Sid. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll request you all to please stay back for a special Sufi musical presentation by Sonam Kalra, which will commence shortly. Well, we now move on to our next discussion. India's AI story is incomplete without its startup ecosystem, where innovation translates into execution at scale. From healthcare and governance to legal systems and social impact, startups are driving real-world deployment of AI solutions. This discussion will examine how entrepreneurial energy can accelerate India's national AI vision. And to moderate this session, I once again invite CNBC-TV18's Shruti Mishra. A round of applause for her, please. And joining her on the panel, please welcome Manu Chopra, co-founder and CEO, Karya; Utkarsh Saxena, co-founder and CEO, Adalat AI; Prashant Warrior, co-founder and CEO, Cure.ai; and Umesh Sachdev, co-founder and CEO, Unifor. A huge round of applause for all of them.
Manu is there. Umesh, you can have a seat here. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, just one quick announcement. Greg Allen of CSIS, he's misplaced his diary somewhere. It says Greg Allen somewhere inside. So if you see a black diary, if you happen to see it anywhere, just let us know.
All right. Let's start off. India's AI ambition has moved from policy to proof of execution, from rural data creation and courtroom automation to AI-led cancer detection and enterprise-grade agentic systems. Indian startups are deploying AI at population scale. Now, with the India AI mission backing sovereign compute, skilling, and foundational models, the real test is clear. Can India build AI that is inclusive, trusted, and globally competitive? Let's explore what it'll take to move from national vision to real-world impact. Manu, let me quickly start with you. Karya is working on building data sets that remove several biases, including gender bias, from AI. So for our audience, how does the simple act of a rural woman speaking on the phone actually become the fuel that trains a global AI model, and how does that work sort of create economic opportunities for women?
Absolutely. It's such an honor to be here on this incredible panel. Thank you for inviting me. Karya is the Sanskrit word for work that gives you dignity, and we think deeply about how do we make sure AI is a force that truly benefits all of us. And for it to do that, it needs to understand our languages, our contexts. As we all know, AI is, if you look at the entire AI value chain, you of course have data set creation, you have model building, you have fine-tuning and evaluations. And what Karya has been able to do is over the last 3 years engage with over 140,000 people, of which 60% are women, across every single state in the country. And we've been able to engage with these communities to build foundational data sets in 70 plus Indian languages. We've been able to engage with these communities to do over 500,000 evaluations of major AI models. And we've been able to engage with these communities to center their voice in model building. Right? So anywhere from data creation to model building to fine-tuning to evaluations, all of it is being done by our communities across India, including rural India. And look, it's as simple as that. If you employ inclusive communities to build these models, the resulting models are more inclusive, right? They have less bias. Speaking of gender bias, during the summit 2 days ago, we launched an effort called Sanmati, which we are so grateful for. It was an effort where we worked with over 20,000 low-income women across 8 states in the country. And we actually built a gender bias benchmark, right? We asked them what does bias look like in their languages. This was work that was, we were mentored by Dr. Kalika Bali, an incredible speech scientist, and my team did it's such an example of what inclusive AI can look like, and how all of us have a moral responsibility to make sure that the products and technologies we build work for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Great work there. Utkarsh, coming to you now. You've previously said that at current speeds, it would take about 300 years to sort of clear India's case backlog. With Adalat AI now live in about 4,000 courtrooms, how exactly is AI sort of shifting, timelines from years to days by automating these clerical bottlenecks?
Yeah, so I think when every lawyer goes to a courtroom, you're young and idealistic and you say cheesy things like you're going to fight for justice, and then you reach the courtroom and you get a rude reality check because the court systems are broken. And the immediate realization is that there are all these manual and clerical processes that slow the system down. So I spend more time trying to find the right document in the court record room than actually cross-examining a witness. Right? I'll give you an example of one of the pain points. There aren't enough stenographers in courts. And in a court, every word needs to be written down. The oral arguments, the cross-examinations. And so judges write the depositions by hand every day. Judge A gets transferred and Judge B comes in and they can't read the handwriting. So they send each other WhatsApp images of depositions till Judge A says, it's been 2 years, I can no longer read my handwriting.
My God.
And now in some states, they have these departments called fair copy departments, where the whole job of the department is to take these depositions every day and rewrite them
Okay.
in legible handwriting, not even type them because we don't have keyboards for Tamil or Hindi, so that it can be read. And so what we are doing is automating these kind of clerical processes with, say, an AI-powered legal transcription tool that transcribes the court deposition, AI-powered case flow management systems to schedule and calendar cases, AI-powered filing systems so that everything is not paper-based and has dashboards where the work can be done, to give the judges back. We're not building AI judges, which is what everyone thinks. Judges are still very much the sole protagonists in the system. We're taking the clerical responsibilities away from them, giving them back time so that we can cut case resolution times and provide timely justice.
Yes, so now let's understand about Cure.ai. Prashant, in January this year, you received a major grant to develop AI-powered ultrasound. So let's say for a mother in a village without access to a radiologist, how does an AI sort of guide portable scan materially improve the odds of a pregnancy and early detection? How does it do that?
No, thank you for inviting me here, and great question. So what we got the grant was for detecting TB and pneumonia on a point-of-care ultrasound. And we already have a scaled solution which uses AI to detect TB on a chest X-ray and pneumonia on a chest X-ray, and that is something which we have scaled across Africa, Southeast Asia, South Asia, about 70-80 countries where we are screening that, right? Now the challenge with X-ray is that it's a bulky device. I mean, it's like a 20-25 kilo device, and you can only take it certain places. So the point-of-care ultrasound is a small, I mean, it's like it can fit in your pocket, it's like a shaver, right? It can fit in your pocket and you can carry it anywhere in the world. The challenge with ultrasound though is twofold. One is that to be able to read that, first of all, I mean, even to be able to capture images, you have to move it around in a certain way, right? So what we are doing is creating automated protocols where you can do certain sweeps and collect images from that, and then building AI to be able to interpret those images to detect tuberculosis and pneumonia on a point-of-care ultrasound. And the value of this is that this can now be used anywhere. I mean, you can carry it to a rural location where there is no access to no access to doctors, and a healthcare worker can now use this to be able to triage for TB and pneumonia. And I think over time, you asked about maternal and child health and those kinds of use cases. Over time, we can expand into those use cases. Right now, the project that we're working on is limited to detecting tuberculosis and pneumonia on these point-of-care ultrasounds.
All right. Let me now go across to Umesh, our global voice on the panel. Umesh, let me talk to you about the India AI Impact Summit. It's drawn global tech leaders, as we all know. So has India sort of officially moved on from being the world's AI back office to becoming one of its sort of primary architects?
So again, great to be here, Shruti. Unifor is headquartered in Silicon Valley. But a lot of people don't realize Unifor was founded in an incubation lab in IIT Madras. In 2008, before Gen AI or any of this was in the vocabulary, we were incubating an AI company out of India, which now is global and serves over 2,000 large enterprises globally. From where we sit, having a customer base, which is spanning about 20 countries, up until recently, there were two countries very clearly leading the race for AI, which is US and China, whether it's LLMs or GPUs or data centers. India has shown that it has the ability to leapfrog in two specific areas and lead the world in those areas. What are those? Number one, India is likely to be the adoption, application, diffusion capital for AI. No country has the opportunity to diffuse AI as India does, and these three panelists of mine are just a small sample size of what's possible in legal, in healthcare, in biased data sets, etc. India has the scale and India has the will to adopt AI at population scale. The second area that India is already leading and people haven't paid attention is that there's a lot of talk of a handful of big tech companies dominating AI and controlling AI. But if you look at the C-suite leaders of those companies, you'll find an interesting pattern there. The number of Indian origin leaders leading those companies. So India is already the talent leader for AI.
Absolutely,
and will continue to provide the talent that the world will need as AI scales. So whether it's application adoption or talent,
those are areas that I feel like India must keep pulling that thread harder and harder, so that it's a three-leg race between US, China, and India, each one uniquely positioned to serve the world.
Absolutely. You know, Manu, I know you have a hard stop, so let me quickly ask you this question. There is a growing debate globally around data colonization, you know, sort of AI built on data taken without their knowledge or fair pay. Through your ethical data model where workers benefit from the data that they produce, do you believe the Karya model can sort of become the mandatory global standard for how every AI company should treat its human workforce?
I hope so. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Look, I think, we all have a moral responsibility to make sure that we center our communities in the model building phase. And again, our communities aren't just, they're of course excellent beneficiaries, like you were saying, for these models. There's so much impact that we can create. They're excellent builders, they're excellent evaluators of this work. And I think what we've been able to prove across multiple modalities, of course, when we're doing local language data collection, it is pretty obvious that our communities are the best place to go. But we then started doing evaluations and fine-tuning, which is, of course, slightly more complicated. And with the right training modules, we were able to get our communities to do that work. And, of course, that work pays really well. We're now expanding into even more complex things. We have workers across rural India building egocentric data sets for spatial intelligence, right? Okay. And again, every time we start something new where there's some hesitation or someone says something patronizing, that is where this breaks. The decentralized on the phone creation of data breaks. But no, I think once again with that we've been able to build pretty extensive data sets of really high quality. And I think time and again our communities across India, and I think this is true for communities across the global majority, right? Like we are incredibly aspirational people. I always say talent is universal, opportunity is not. I know that's a very popular quote. And I think think deeply about how can AI bring accelerated earning and learning opportunities to low-income communities across the global south. I've been heartened by the incredible work the government of India is doing in this space. We, over the summit, have had several launches with them where they have insisted on fair wages, where they are leading the bar on India being the skill capital, to your point, for the AI race across the value chain. And I think that's pretty exciting.
Absolutely, and we definitely wish that the Karya standard becomes the global standard.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, so Manu had a hard stop and he had to leave us midway. But let's continue, Utkarsh. In November 2025, the Kerala High Court sort of mandated that, your AI for recording witness statements. And with many lower courts sort of lacking stenographers that, you were talking about, how does your 15-language speech-to-text system sort of ensure trials don't stall due to administrative gaps? Give us one cool example. Okay, I think we'll just have to...
Yeah, no, that was absolutely very exciting. First time that any state in the world, any state judiciaries mandate an AI solution in courts. In terms of the kind of challenges that we face. So, no worries. Yeah. So I was saying that Kerala became the first state in the world to... Testing 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So I was saying that Kerala became the first state, which was incredibly exciting. But, this is a twin engine venture. Technology is only half the work. The other part of the work is engaging with the judiciary to actually do programming, workshopping, so that actually internalize the tech. So that they can actually technology in their workflows. And therefore that entails actually partnering with the courts. Yeah, there's VIP movement.
Of speech to text ensures trials don't stop due to administrative gaps. If you can give us an example on that.
Yeah, so as I was saying, if there isn't a stenographer in the room, either the cross-examination doesn't happen, you know, that tariq per tariq frustration that we heard in Bollywood is because of issues like this. Steno is not present. And so now what happens is, rather than the judge transcribing it by hand, it instantly appears on the screen. You walk into any courtroom in Kerala and it's being done on our platforms through AI speech to text in Malayalam, in Tamil, in the languages being spoken, and that's only possible because AI can be customized with languages. But what I was adding to that is, this is a twin engine mission. Tech can only get you so far in the global south and low tech settings. You have to do extra work on the second engine, which is programming, workshopping, and training. And very often we spend time with the stenos, the court clerks, the judges, to actually help them internalize this technology into their workflow so that it actually gets used and is actually used in court on a daily basis. So building tech is certainly half, but it's only half the work. The other big part of the work is engaging with the stakeholders and helping them internalize tech, even in rural courts in India, where other aspects of tech may not be working, but AI seems to be working. Yeah.
Great. You know, Prashant, at the World Conference on Lung Cancer, you demonstrated that AI detects hidden nodules on routine X-rays. How is QXR sort of elaborate on acting as a safety net for diseases like TB and lung cancer, especially when doctors aren't even actively looking for it?
No, thank you for that question. So this started about 2018, 2019, when we were looking at detecting TB on a chest X-ray. And we could do that in these screening programs where you go out into the community and screen people for TB, and AI was interpreting those X-rays and finding TB on the X-ray. But one of the questions that we got from Stop TB partnership was, can we now do this across hospitals that are taking routine X-rays, right? And there are 1.3 billion chest X-rays taken around the year. Should we continue, or you think? Yeah.
We continue. We have a performance right after this, but hold on, guys. Yeah.
So if we have 1.3 billion chest X-rays taken routinely around the world, and on those X-rays now, if you could basically just score for TB, you could triage those patients and test them for TB, and you could potentially identify a pool of patients that were not originally getting diagnosed. And we did that across Mumbai. We basically set up our product QXR across every government hospital, BMC hospital, the municipal corporation hospital. And we said every X-ray that is taken in Mumbai at a municipal hospital is going to be processed by Cure. And what we found was that out of 100 patients that were diagnosed with TB, 35 were diagnosed purely because our algorithm on a routine X-ray identified signs of TB and said that this patient should get a sputum test. And those patients were not on the TB pathway. They would not have been diagnosed with TB if not for AI flagging that and saying that this could be TB. Now, so we then, this happened in 2018, 2019. We said, can we extend that to lung cancer?
Wow.
Right? And lung cancer is one of those conditions where almost 85% of the cases are diagnosed late.
Yeah.
When
it's a
survival
game
rate
changer
rate is very, very small. You're talking about 5% survival in stage 4, right?
Yeah.
So we said, can we now detect and lung cancer screening typically happens on chest CTs. I mean, chest CTs are hard. I mean, you don't have enough capacity to do CTs for people who are not symptomatic, right? So screening programs are limited, and especially they happen in the West, but definitely not in the global South. So we said, can we look at these 1.3 billion chest X-rays and find signs of lung cancer on those X-rays? And if we can find a sign of lung cancer, can we triage those patients and get them to a CT?
Yeah.
And we did that. We built that algorithm, and we found that out of 100 patients, we did a study along with AstraZeneca. It was called the CREATE study, which got published about a few months back. And what we found is that out of 100 patients that are triaged by that algorithm on routine X-rays, see, we all do X-rays for routine reasons, right?
Yeah.
On those X-rays, we found, let's say you found 100 patients who were at risk based on Cure's algorithm. More than 55 were actually positive on the chest CT that was taken subsequently. So extremely accurate in terms of triaging those patients for a subsequent CT. And typically, if you look at CT screening programs, the positivity rate is about 1.52%. So if you do 100 CTs, you find 1.5 or 2 positives. Here, out of 100, you're finding 55 positives. So that was one of the big achievements. And then gradually, now that product is also scaled up. But the basic idea that we sort of believe in is that we all do routine exams, and on those routine exams, if you can increase the number of things you can detect, you can actually diagnose disease early. And that has been the focus of Cure.
Absolutely. Yeah, that deserves an applaud for sure. Umesh, you've been a strong advocate for sovereign AI. In fact, owning your own digital brain rather than renting it. But in a cost-sensitive market like India, why should enterprises invest in sort of owning models instead of relying on global tech giants?
So it's really interesting, Shruti, that there's a lot of talk, especially in Silicon Valley, that on-premise is the new cloud. And the reason for that, in the software as a service era, moving to the cloud was, one factor was it was more economical to move to shared resources. Turns out when you're running AI on GPUs and your model is constantly using those GPUs, not for training but for inferencing, on-premise, especially with smaller fine-tuned models, are a much better answer to the use cases that enterprises want to support. If you're an insurance company, you have a whole claims process. 4 people have to look at a claim before you say yes or no to somebody's claim. Now you're running 4 AI agents. Those AI agents now don't necessarily need to refer to a large language model, which was trained on internet-scale data, but refer to a small language model, which was fine-tuned only on insurance regulation, insurance claim. That small language model can now run on a single GPU. And it's much more economical to run that single GPU inside your enterprise than on the hyperscaler cloud. So AI, especially for businesses, is turning the cost equation lopsided. And sovereign AI isn't just a country-specific issue. Of course, India, many European countries, Saudi Arabia, are going for their own sovereign AI infra LLM, but large corporations are now going for their own sovereign AI setups. And Unifor's business AI platform is designed to deliver this sovereign and open SLM, LLM, agentic framework to countries and companies alike.
Okay, all right. Utkarsh, you sort of mentioned this earlier that you're piloting Adalat AI in Zambia and Ghana. As India's scale judicial solutions sort of becoming are they becoming our most valuable sort of export to the global South nations, facing the same legal bottlenecks? Do you believe that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's surreal for me to go to courtrooms in Lusaka and Nairobi and Accra and feel like I'm back in Patiala House in Delhi. Because they're all exactly the same. The colonizers were very standardized in their oppression, because of which we've inherited the same legal codes, the same legal processes. Order 39 Rule 1 and 2, which is a temporary injunction provisions in India, the same provisions exist in these countries. which creates an opportunity to actually export this and build this in other parts of the world as well. And when we started, our interest was very clearly India. We're Indian engineers and lawyers, but we started receiving interest from judiciaries of other countries saying, hey, we have the same broken system, we have the same problems, we have the same legal codes, can we try piloting this here? And with very minimal tweaking, we can actually replicate these solutions in other parts of the world, proving that India can be not just the diffusion and the use case basket, but just generally for the global south, the petri dish that builds these solutions and takes them across the world.
Sure. Umesh, let me go back to you. You know, you recently made a very bold prediction that India could cross 10% GDP growth in the next 24 months if AI adoption accelerates. What is the single biggest execution gap preventing that leap?
You know, the execution gap potentially for India is kind of similar to what any other country faces. I'm going to borrow what Jensen Huang of NVIDIA said, that one should not worry about AI taking away jobs. One should worry about somebody who uses AI better than you taking your job. And I think if I pull that thread, the execution risk for India is at population scale, disseminating knowledge, disseminating the benefits. So people who weren't coders can now learn these skills and start using AI in their daily lives. Students can take the risk, like the three of us, to not look for jobs in MNCs or government sector, but actually become job creators and become startup founders. So the dissemination of knowledge, the dissemination of skills, that's the single biggest execution gap. But I would say I am very pleasantly surprised by this week what India has been able to pull off with the AI Impact Summit. I haven't seen anything of this kind anywhere in the world. The magnitude, the excitement is just breathtaking.
All right, you know, picking up from what you just said, my one final question for all three of you. If we fast forward to 2030, what will define success for AI for India at scale? Prashad, you're next to me.
The question is, what will define
success for India at scale?
I think India has the opportunity to develop the application layer across multiple industries, and we are doing that in healthcare, we're doing that in law, we're working in multiple. So I think in general, I mean, we should be this most scaled up country with respect to applications that are developed on top of frontier AI models. And I think the frontier AI models will continue to be the ones that are leading the market right now. But the application layer should be India's.
Okay, the application layer should be India's. Utkarsh.
I would say, based on my vantage point, the two things that I stress about the most, which I think will be critical, one is compute and the other is talent. That's all, I think that's always the hold up, and especially because we are performing a sovereign function, and so we can't use third-party APIs and kind of productionize them. We deploy our own models as an AI native company for which compute is a prerequisite. And so investing in that kind of infrastructure, providing that kind of compute capacity for our own foundational models to emerge and then deployed and the inferencing to happen is paramount. Yeah.
All right, Umesh, final words.
So for me, the measure of success a couple of years out from now would be, just as Unifor started as a incubation project in one of the IITs in India, and today it's a unicorn serving global customers. In the next 24 months, if we can have 500 unicorns of this kind,
wow,
I think that's truly the vision. Some of them would be legal, some of them would be healthcare, some of them would be enterprise focused, horizontal like Unifor is. But the potential to build in India and export technology, talent, and adoption to the world, that's the measure of success.
500 unicorns in the next 24 months. Fingers crossed for that. Thank you very much, gentlemen. If there's one clear takeaway, AI for India cannot just be about frontier models or evaluations. It has to be about access, trust, and measurable impact. Ladies and gentlemen, what we've witnessed this evening is not just dialogue, but direction. India's AI movement will be defined not only by capability, but by collaboration, governance, and global trust. On behalf of CNBC-TV18, thank you so much for being a part of the Global AI Lens India AI Impact Summit 2026. We now invite you to kindly stay back for a special Sufi musical presentation by Sonam Kalra. Please move to the lawns right behind you for this wonderful performance. The bar is now open. Have a great evening. And once again, I must apologize. Thank you for braving the jammers, the music, and still giving us lots and lots of takeaways, and thank you so much for your key invaluable insights. Thank you. Thank you for being a fabulous audience.